we will begin discussing international finance. We're going to start off discussing exchange rates. So international finance is a study of how the markets for currency around the world work. So we'll start off with exchange rates. Purchasing foreign goods requires foreign currency. Sellers and workers want to be paid in their home currency. So what that means is if I want to go buy a Ferrari from Italy, the people who make the Ferrari, they don't want to be paid in US dollars. They can't pay their rent in US dollars. They can't buy grocery with US dollars. They want to be paid in euros. Trade between the US and European Union countries requires US dollars and euros. So essentially what we need to think about is I have my money right here. This is me. This is a really nice car. So somehow I've managed to buy this car for $100. And so I want to somehow send my $100 bill over here and in exchange get this car. Well, what we need to think about here is, again, the person who works in the factory in Italy, they don't want to take a $100 bill from me. Instead, what we need to do is we need to take my $100 bill, turn it into euros, then buy the car with those euros. And so what we're going to think about is this arrow right here, the market of turning US dollars into euros. So the exchange rate is the rate at which one currency can be exchanged for another. One thing to note is that the exchange rate is really the price of one country's currency relative to another country's currency. And this is a good thing because we've learned lots about prices and how supply and demand determine prices. And a lot of what we've learned about will carry over here when we're thinking about exchange rates and the price of currency. So I'll talk briefly about how we actually calculate exchange rates. So we're going to think about is the exchange rate is a fraction that's equal to 1 because the top and the bottom are the same. So if we're saying that $1 equals 0.9 euros, and that's what we're going to be saying for today. So $1 equals 0.9 euros, top equals the bottom, fractions equal to 1, 0.9 euros is equal to $1, that's equal to 1. And you could also find out that this right here, 1 euro divided by $1.11, that's also equal to 1 because 1 euro is equal to $1.11. So to convert between currencies, you just multiply by the exchange rate fraction because again, you're multiplying by 1, which is always allowed. You're going to use the fraction that makes the units cancel out. So you might remember this when you first learned about multiplying fractions is the idea of when the top and the bottom, top of one fraction, the bottom of another fraction are in the same unit, those units cancel. And the currency you're converting from is on the bottom, and the currency you're converting to is on the top. So for example, if we're trying to go from dollars to euros, we are converting from dollars, so that goes on the bottom. We're converting to euros, so that goes on the top. Notice that when we do this, the units for dollars cancel, and so we're left with price in euros equals euros, which is what we want. Let's try an example. The current US dollar to euro exchange rate is $1 to 0.9 euros. Ferrari 812 Superfast costs 330,000 euros. What is that price in US dollars? The answer here is D. How do we get there? We start off at 330,000 euros. We're converting from euros, so that goes on the bottom. We're converting to dollars, so that goes on the top. Units cancel. So now what we have is 330,000 times 1 divided by 0.9 is $366,667. Whenever you do these, I like to do sort of a sense check at the end. It's easy to flip around the conversion rate. A US dollar is worth less than a euro. So if you want to come up with 330,000 euros, you need to start off with over $330,000, right? You come in with over $330,000. Know that when you get euros, you're going to get fewer euros than you started with, than the number of dollars you started with. So we start off with over $360,000, and through those, and from that, we're able to buy 330,000 euros. So now we'll think a little more about exchange rate markets. The currency exchange market is by far the largest market in the world. It's $6 trillion per day. US currency is involved in 88% of the transactions. You can see the most heavily traded currency pairs all involve the US dollar. Today, what we're going to be thinking of is the supply and demand for euros. The price of euros is expressed in terms of another currency, typically US dollars. If the price of euros falls, we're going to see a higher quantity of euros demanded. So again, when price falls, we see higher quantity demanded. So when price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. Why is that? Well, if the price of euros falls, you can buy more in Europe with the same amount of dollars. So when the price of euros falls, now I'm going to say, oh, if Parmesan cheese cost 3 euros per pound and euros are now cheaper, well, I'm going to be more likely to buy this now cheaper Parmesan cheese, which means I'm going to go try to get more euros in order to do that. Americans will want to import these cheap European goods like the Parmesan cheese. European producers want to be paid in euros. So I have to go get euros so I can buy this Parmesan cheese, so American demand for euros will increase. This means that the demand curve is downward sloping, right? When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Demand for euros slopes down. Notice this is good because we've been dealing with lots and lots of downward sloping demand curves in the class, so it's nice that this one that the demand for currency also is downward sloping. So we can go ahead and take a look at this graph. So what you notice is the x-axis we call quantity of euros. Notice x-axis is quantity. Now the exchange rate is on the y-axis, which is where we usually think about price being. And that should make sense because exchange rate is really the price. It is the price of a euro, right? So if this was US dollar per gallon of milk, that would be the price of milk. Here we have US dollar per euro, so it's the price of a euro. Okay, now let's think about supply. If the price of euros increases, we will see a higher quality of euros supplied. So now we're going to be thinking of the people supplying euros. The people who supply euros are the ones who are paid in euros. And so if they were going on the currency exchange market, they're going to be the ones getting rid of their euros. That's going to be people in the Eurozone. And if you are holding a euro and all of a sudden your euro is worth a lot, people holding euros can now get the same amount of dollars for fewer euros, or for the same amount of euros, you can get more dollars. So if you find this out, so now you're holding something valuable, as the price goes up, you'll be more likely to supply euros to the market. Because once the price goes up, now I say, oh, well, now that the value of my euro has gone up, I'm going to be more likely to let someone else buy the euro from me because I'm getting more from it. So what does this mean? The supply curve will be upward sloping. So that means the supply curve now looks like this. And notice we have this nice thing where we have downward sloping demand, upward sloping supply. Again, US dollar per euro, that is the price of a euro. When I made these slides up, the price of a euro is about $1.18. And so we see that here where we have supply and demand intersect. That would give us our exchange rate of $1.18. And then the quantity of euros is going to be the number of euros traded in the currency market. Currency exchanges are markets. Like other markets, prices, which are exchange rates, are determined by the intersection of supply and demand. The previous example looked at the currency market for euros. Euros were supplied by people living in the Eurozone, people in Europe. They're the ones who are paid in euros. Euros were demanded by people living in the US, who are paid in US dollars and must trade US dollars for euros, in order to get euros so they can buy things made in Europe. Next, we're going to think about changes in exchange rates. Like other markets we've looked at in class, the supply and demand curves for currencies can change. And so when we first learned about equilibrium, we did all sorts of examples where, the supply of milk increases, the demand for cars decreases, thinking like that. Well, we're going to be thinking about shifts, how supply or demand can shift. Well, when looking at shifts, we're going to remember to focus on the domestic currency. So one of the tricks that I use is both currencies are included in the price on the y-axis, right? So the exchange rate, the graph we saw before, it was dollars per euro. So, all right, are we thinking about dollars? Are we thinking about euros? It may help to look at the x-axis because the x-axis will say, quantity of euros. So typically when we think about this, we're going to say suppliers are the ones located in the domestic country. So whatever the domestic country is, we're going to think about the people who live there are the suppliers. People located outside of there, buying stuff made there, are the demanders. So here, for example, we see that the x-axis talks about the quantity being in billions of euros. Let's suppose that the demand increases. So something happens, and we'll talk about things that can shift demand in the future. Something happens and causes the demand to increase. So for whatever reason, people in the United States, remember people in the United States are the demanders, decide we want to hold more euros, we want to get more euros, maybe buy more stuff made in Europe. So that leads to an increase in demand. How does that affect the exchange rate? What we see is that we started off here, wound up here. So we have an increase in the price. The exchange rate goes from $1.25 to $1.75, and an increase in the quantity traded. So the exchange rate increasing, that should make sense because that means the price of euros increases. And so if lots of people want more euros, well, if you want a euro now because lots of people want them, you're going to have to pay more for it. So the exchange rate or the price of a euro goes up. Next, let's see what happens if supply increases. So now we have, for whatever reason, people holding euros decide they don't want to hold as many euros. Instead, they want to get them out of the market and trade them for dollars or yen or something. So the supply of euros increases. Well, now that means we started at this point. Now we are going to move to this point. So the supply increases, we move here. And this means that the price of euros goes down. The quantity exchange goes up. So the price of euros goes down. That should make sense. Now we have lots of people holding euros wanting to get rid of them. Whenever you have a whole bunch of new sellers, a whole bunch of people holding something that they decide they want to get rid of, that pushes the price down. So we have a decrease in the price of euros, so a decrease in the exchange rate. A decrease in the exchange rate makes foreign currency cheaper. Products denominated in that currency become cheaper, right? So if something costs 10 euros and I want to buy something, I'm going to buy some Parmesan cheese online from Europe and it's 10 euros. Well, if I find out that the exchange rate has gone down, well, that means that it's easier and cheaper for me to get euros. And so now that 10 euro Parmesan cheese costs me less because I can get more euros for my dollars. Similarly, an increase in the exchange rate makes foreign currency more expensive. Products denominated in that currency become more expensive. So now the opposite could happen. If all of a sudden people decide they don't like holding dollars, dollars aren't worth very much, well, now that makes everything made in Europe more expensive because I got to show up with a whole lot of dollars in order to buy the same Parmesan cheese for 10 euros. Changes in the supply of or demand for foreign currency have effects on markets for individual goods as well as the economy as a whole. So what we're going to see is that, so if the currency market changes, that will affect my demand for Parmesan cheese, have an effect on the market for Parmesan cheese. It also potentially can have an effect on the entire US economy. All right, last thing we'll do is a question. Suppose I'm going on a trip to Europe. Currently, I can exchange $1 for 0.9 euros. I should want the number of euros I can get for my dollar to go up, down, or it doesn't matter. The answer here is A. I would want the number of euros I can get for my dollar to go up, right? So right now, if I turn in a dollar, I get 9/10 of a euro. I would really like it if when I turned in my dollar, I got a whole euro or more than €1, because that way, with the fixed number of dollars, I could buy more stuff on my trip.